Hi guys, I just wanted to do a ship building tutorial because as of the last patch things have changed quite a bit. Before, the smoke interference wasn't working properly, and so you were getting modifiers on here which say like plus 50% smoke interference, and it wasn't actually doing anything down here. And same the other way round, you were getting minus 25% and such, and it wasn't taking effect down here. So you might still be building your ships out, assuming that nothing's changed. So I just wanted to do a quick tutorial just to show you what's changed and what it will have affected, so you don't fall into the trap of building your ships the way you used to in this new patch. So first thing you do, I always set my ships to the largest displacement just so you can put the most amount of tonnage into the hull. You don't have to do this, you can go for the smallest if you wanted, and it's got a better turning circle, but I like to put as much as I can into each hull. It seems more efficient to me, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is select your towers and choose the towers which have the highest smoke interference modifier. So 36, 35, they're usually in order, but as you can see, like there's one there that's minus 43, one there that's minus 46. So we'll start off with this one. And then do the same thing on here. Okay, so now you can see that we're now in a negative smoke interference modifier. So the idea is you don't go over this, because as soon as you do, it really badly affects your base accuracy of all your guns. So I'll quickly show you that so you can see what it's doing. So if you put a gun down and hover over it, it tells you what all the percentages are for each range. So 47, 15, 4.2. So now if we went into a positive smoke interference, them numbers will change, so you'll be able to see it in real time what effect it's having. So if we select some funnels to make the smoke interference go high, so we're on plus 50 there. So that plus 50 is giving a minus 15% base accuracy. So that's 39, 12, 3.5. Get rid of it. 47, 15, 4.2. So as you can see, there's a huge difference in them accuracy numbers, and that's just down to the smoke interference. So the most important thing when you're building a ship is to not go into positive smoke interference numbers, which is why I always start off with the towers that give you the best negative smoke interference. Okay, so now we select our funnels, and we want to select the largest one we can without going positive. So before we do that, on these propulsion components, some of them are obviously going to be affecting your smoke interference, so select them first before you select your funnels. You usually find that the furthest right you go, the better the component. It's not always the case. So like this one, the gas turbines, I wouldn't ever use that personally. And the turbo electric, I don't think I'd ever use that either. But the majority of the time, the furthest to the right is the best one to use. So let's choose the forced draft boilers. That will put your engine efficiency up really high. which will affect your acceleration and your operational range. Operational range is only a campaign stat, doesn't do anything in the custom battles, but I'll assume that you're building your ship out for campaigns, not for custom battles. So the next thing will be this one, the turbines. And then let's start with the smallest funnel, which has put me at minus 3.5. So let's try the next one up. Minus 0.8, so that's probably going to be the one we choose. Let's just have a quick look at this one. Okay, so that's gone into the positive numbers, even though it's 0.6. It's hardly anything. It's always better to just not have any negative modifier at all, so that's the funnel that we're going to choose. So now that you can see what your engine efficiency is at the speed that you've got, you can now choose what speed you want your hull to go. So depending on what era you're in, you're going to want a different speed, and depending what role you want your ship to perform, you're also going to want a different speed as well. So we're currently on a battleship, so we're going to be staying far away from the combat. We're not getting too close in. We want to try and avoid torpedoes. So you can do two different things with the battleships. You can either have them really fast to make sure you can run away, or you can have them really slow and use them as power projection battleships for the campaign. So basically, the slower your ship is, the cheaper it is, and the cheaper it is, the more you can buy, obviously. And then obviously with you being able to buy more, you're going to get a larger power projection per cost. So I'm going to assume that you're building it for combat, so you're going to want a relatively high speed. So I think this one is, so we're in 1906 at the moment. So in 1906, I usually go for between 20 and 25. I haven't got specific numbers that I choose with the speed. It's usually depending on what engine efficiency you can get, which is obviously depending on what smoke interference you've got. So you can see here that you get negatives for going under 86%, I think it is. So if we lower it to 86, or lower it so it increases to 86, I should say. As you can see, it's gone into the positive. And then, as you can see, it's starting to go into the negative there. So it's hardly anything. You could drop it even lower than that. I think they've changed this. I think acceleration used to be at 0% when you were at 86 before, so looks like they've changed that as well. So let's have a quick look, see if we can, oop, wrong way, see if we can find out where the point is, where acceleration's at 0. There we go, 65%, so around 66% is pretty much spot on. You can have it lower than that. If you don't intend on doing many maneuvers with your ship, then you don't really need to accelerate very often. So with this being a battleship, you're going to be staying far away from the combat. You can have this quite low if you wanted, because you're not going to be changing direction much, you're not going to be losing speed, so you're not going to need acceleration. But assuming that you are going to be doing some maneuvers with the ship, you're going to want it around about 66%, so I'll leave it at that. So that'll be the speed that you are then going to choose. So we've now got the smoke interference and the engine efficiency at the peak condition. So in the campaign, this will affect, the range stat will affect two different things. well, 3 different things really. It'll affect the power projection. So if the only thing you change on your ship is this, then that will change how much power projection your ship is putting out. I don't know the exact stats of this, I haven't worked it out. But if you're going to build a ship out for power projection, then you're going to want this at max. If you're not really that bothered, then you can lower it down. Another thing it affects is your convoy transports being sunk, so protecting your transports. And then another thing it affects is participation in battles. So if you've got multiple ports, say around England, the more range you've got, the more ships are likely to join a battle. I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think the battle's usually determined by the player or AI that's got their fleet in sea control. So whoever's got their fleet in sea control, I think will determine how many ships enter the battle. So if one player's not got any, the other player's got 10, then it's likely that the battle's going to be towards 10. And then the defender will then have 10 ships join the battle. So that's only really affects you with the missions if you're the one who's in sea control. So I usually keep this at the minimum because it doesn't seem to have that much effect on convoys and on missions, but it does have a large effect on power projection. So if I'm building a ship out specifically for power projection, I'll put that up to the maximum, which I usually do with the battleships, but I'll come back to that later. And then on everything else, I'll just put it at the minimum. Okay, bulkheads, always at maximum, no matter, even if it's a torpedo boat, maximum bulkheads every time. Really does help with the survivability of a ship. I'll always go I'll always go standard with the quarters as well, so you can take a few losses without losing any stats. Apart from torpedo boats or destroyers, which I'll go cramped. With manoeuvres, with these components on propulsion, they affect your manoeuvrability, so I nearly always choose the best components for propulsion because I love manoeuvrability. I think it's one of the most important things in the game to dodge torpedoes and to get yourself into a position to attack with torpedoes. Now, me personally, I prefer unbalanced just because I've got used to it, but I think any of these will be fine, whichever one you decide to choose. This one's got a delayed reaction if you're changing directions, but if you're not changing directions, like if you're just going straight forward and you go to the right, it doesn't actually have a delayed reaction. It's only if you're going from right to left that there's a reaction. So if you're not really switching from right to left with a ship very often, if you're only making small adjustments and then one big adjustment, then unbalanced is the better option. Onto this, always choose the best armour. Apart from the one condition that you don't choose the best armour is if you're building a ship out specifically for power projection, but again I'll come back to that later on. And then I always choose the best citadel because it increases your armour and your resistance. Your resistance is a really important stat. But also it increases your resistance to crits, like critical hits, ammo detonation, and the same with the bulkheads. That will reduce your flash fire. So they're the two critical hits that you need to worry about: flash fire and ammo detonation. So I always go for the highest bulkheads and citadel, and then depending on what my flash fire chance is, I will then decide whether I want to have the highest bar bets on as well. As you can see, it lowered it by 3%. It's not a massive amount, but it's still good. So I'll always choose them 3 for every ship apart from torpedo boats or destroyers. And then if I run out of weight, then I might consider taking one of these off if I think I need more armour on the ship, or if I want to add another gun or something. Okay, so onto the ammo. Despite the fact that that says gun base accuracy higher, and that says gun base accuracy lower, it's the gun range that really makes the big difference. The fact that this one's got higher gun range actually translates to a higher accuracy, which is really strange and confusing, but I will demonstrate. So if you hover over your gun again, you can see you've got 45-14. If you choose heavy, it goes up to 47-15. So the heavier the shell is actually a better accuracy, despite it telling you otherwise. Obviously you're going to choose ammo depending on how long you're expecting the engagements to go, so I do quite often choose increased ammo for battleships, because I do use them for long range bombarding, and the battles usually take a long time, but it's up to you. Whatever you think is best is fine. With the propellants, I always choose the thing that gives the lowest flash fire chance, because critical hits are the worst thing that can happen to your ship, really. Everything else takes ages for your ship to die from structural damage. So it's either getting hit by a torpedo or getting critical hit. That's pretty much the only two ways you die, apart from torpedo boats. So always choose the things that give you the least flash fire chance or least ammo detonation chance. So flash fire minus 2.5, even though it has got a higher ammo detonation. I think flash fires are, I was going to say they're more common. I don't actually know if they are. Probably about the same, but you can survive an ammo detonation fairly easily, but flash fires, usually as soon as you get one of them, you're dead. So anything that reduces your flash fire, I always choose that. Same again with the shell charges, anything that reduces your flash fire, whichever one reduces it the most, choose that one. Hydraulic turrets, or better. I'm not a massive fan. They weigh quite a bit. Well, then again, they don't weigh that much on these small ships, but they do weigh quite a lot on the big ships. It depends how you're using your ship, really. If you've got a small ship and you're doing tight turns, your turrets rotate fairly quickly anyway. If you've got a big ship, you don't want to be getting close into the enemy doing tight turns, so you're not going to be turning much, so you don't really need your turrets to turn fast. So really, I don't rate this very highly. If you're going to choose any, just choose the first one, because it hasn't got the negative effects to your crit chances. So all of these having that huge flash fire chance is just not worth it. So if you're going to choose any, just choose this one. But personally, I don't think any of them are really worth it. Reloading, it's always best to go for the highest one, because obviously the faster your guns fire, the better, unless you're obviously using a torpedo boat or a destroyer or whatever built just to torpedo. But you're always going to choose the best one of these. Torpedo launchers. Depending on how you're using your ship, will change how much ammo you're going to want to take. With torpedo boats, I usually just take reduced. I go in, do one torpedo run, then escape, and just flee the battle with that torpedo boat. It's pretty rare that you end up getting more than one shot off before they die, so just take reduced on a torpedo boat. On a larger ship, if you've got electric or oxygen unlocked, then you can take increased and just fire pot shots off from long range. But if you just got fast, you're probably not going to get in close range with a battleship, so you can just have this down at reduced, or just not take torpedoes at all. With a screening ship, the armoured cruisers or the light cruisers, then you are likely to use torpedoes with them, and you're also likely to survive quite a long time, so you might want to take standard or increased with the screening ships, because they will stay alive long enough to reload. Obviously with the torpedo size, you're going to go for the highest. There is an occasion where you don't want the highest, but it's basically on a destroyer or a torpedo boat. If you put in a deck torpedo side by side, once you get past 21 inches and 4 deck launcher turrets, 2 don't fit side by side, so that's when you just stay at 21 inch when you're using a ×4 deck launcher side by side. Well, other than that, you're always going to choose the highest. Rangefinders, never choose the stereoscopic. The long range gun accuracy doesn't work. It's a bug that hasn't been fixed yet, so until it gets fixed, always choose the coincidence rangefinder, and then just choose the best coincidence rangefinder. With acoustics, we haven't actually got them unlocked here, but you're always going to choose the highest acoustics to detect torpedoes early. You might not choose it on your battleships because obviously they're intended to stay far clear of the fight, so they're unlikely to be the first ship to encounter a torpedo. So on anything other than battleship, take the highest one. On a battleship, you might not want to take any. Radar, that is basically, it increases your accuracy. We can't choose it at the moment, but it just increases your stats. So you'd always take the best radar if you can afford it. The only time you wouldn't is on a torpedo boat or if you're building your ship out for power projection. Okay, on to armour. Depending on what role you're performing is going to depend what armour you want on it, and also obviously what size your ship is. So a good rule of thumb is whatever your gun is that you're using. So let's say we're going to be using the 12-inch gun, so just choose 12-inch armour. That should protect you. Well, it doesn't really protect you that much from 12 inches unless you start factoring in your armour quality. So that does give you a plus 80, so that is actually quite a bit. That'll give you around about 20-21 inches, which protects you up to about 7,500 meters, so that's not too bad. So just have it the same as what your gun is. You can delve into it a little bit deeper than that, but you'll figure that out by yourself. If you want to start stripping armour off, you'll find a point where you've realised you've stripped too much armour off, and you'll just put it back up again. So I've been playtesting with different styles of the hulls, depending on what your combat role will be. So I've been using battleships just as long-range bombarding ships, and basically you just really want main deck and main belt. You don't really need to worry about your forebelt and your aft belts, foredeck and aft deck, if you're staying at long range, that is. So it's a bit of a strange one, but I've started with these battleships just taking 0 on the fore and aft. This does one bonus to your ship, is it affects your pitch. So if we put this up to 10, we're on 6.1 pitch at the moment. Oh, it's only actually put it up to 6.2, I thought it was more than that. Oh, they must have changed that in the last patch, so it doesn't actually affect your pitch anymore. It used to affect your pitch when you had armour on the extremities of your ship, but I've basically been playtesting with plunging fire, and you'd need to put a stupid amount of armour on your ship to protect from plunging fire. You can see when you hover over a gun what the plunging fire penetration is. So it's the stat on the right of the middle of the three stats, basically. So the left one is the belt penetration, the middle one is your deck penetration, and the one on the right is obviously your accuracy. So the one in the middle is 5.8 penetration at 17.5 thousand meters. So you would need 5.8 inches of armor to protect against plunging fire. Now that's fair enough, you know, you can do that if you wanted, especially with your armor increasing it by 80%. Then you'd only need about 3 inches on your aft and foredeck. But I found that you take almost as much damage from a penetrating shot than you do with an over penetrating shot. So the only time that you take considerably less is if you have about double what the penetrating value is. So you'd need 6 inches of armor. Well, if we have a look up here, that's 22,754. If you take it off, it's 18,414. So what's that? 22,754, 4,360. So by stripping it off completely, you've saved yourself 4,300. Excuse me. So just to save on a little bit of damage, is it worth spending an extra 4,000 tons just to save on a little bit of plunging fire damage? Personally, I'd say it probably isn't. Now, if we have a look at other guns, like these 2 inches, 3 inches, they've got a plunging fire of 3.3 inches. Now, you're going to get shot by a lot of these, not necessarily with a battleship, but with one of your screening ships. And so what I would recommend is, if you're going to put armour on your aft and foredeck, just go up to 3, or to protect against the largest caliber destroyer gun, you'd need 6. And then to protect against the largest caliber light cruiser gun, you'd need 1. And then to protect against the 9-inch, which is a very common heavy cruiser gun, you need 1.7. So I'd either choose 3, 6, 1, or 1.7. But I wouldn't ever go higher than that. That just protects you against the secondary guns. So on a battleship it's not necessary, because you don't really want your battleships to be anywhere near the enemy's smaller guns. You want them far away from battle. But on anything smaller than a battleship, you're going to want 1.7 or less. Between 0.3 and 1.7. So if I was building this out for how I use the battleship, it would be 12, 12, 14, 14, 12. That's how I would build out. With a superstructure, I wouldn't have any on that. Again, that's a close-in secondary gun protection. So you'd have that the same as you'd have your foredeck and aft deck. So that's how I would build out a long-range hull. Then if I was using a cruiser that was performing screening duties, then with your forebelt you want it approximately half of your main belt. Same again with your aft belt, because you're going to be doing a lot of turning, dodging torpedoes. You're going to want your aft belt virtually the same as your forebelt. Also, it helps with the new weight offset changes that they've made to the game. And then with your aft deck, and foredeck, I always just go around 1.7, and then again with your superstructure about 1.7. So this is how I would build out the ship if it was performing screening duties, if I was using a 12-inch gun, which is usually what you'll be using. It'd actually be an 11-inch gun, but you may as well build it out as if it's a 12-incher. That seems to be the best build out for a screening ship. Obviously, some screening ships don't have the tonnage to be able to build like that, so you would just strip. Oh, sorry, this one. If it was a screening ship, you wouldn't need your main deck so high. You'd only need that the same as your aft belt and forebelt. Also, if you were using it as a screening ship, you wouldn't need your top armour so high on your turret either. So you'd just have it the same as your forebelt and aft belt. Okay, so that's the armour that I'd choose. So from here now, we know pretty much how much tonnage we've got left. We've got our speed sorted out, we've got our smoke interference sorted out, we've got our engine efficiency sorted out. So we've got all of the basic core stats ready for your ship, ready for you to start adding your guns to it. So with battleships, I do prefer to just go for only main guns, because I don't intend on getting within secondary gun range. But obviously with screening ships, you're going to want a few secondary guns in there as well. So I always start off with the best gun, which has the highest mark. So that's got Mark 3. So I'd choose the 12-inch Mark 3. Double barrel and triple barrel are really good, but the quadruple barrel is not very good. I've worked out the percentages of its reload time, sorry, and it actually works out that a quad barrel is worse than a double barrel per cost and tonnage. The only time you would ever take a quad barrel is if your hull isn't wide enough, or long enough, sorry, to fit 2 turrets, and you want 2 turrets. So instead of having 2 turrets of double, you would, because you can only fit 1, that's the only time that you take a quad barrel. Other than that, you'd always take doubles or triples. Okay, so you're going to build virtually every ship out with 4 turrets, 2 on barbettes and 2 outside the barbettes. So you're going to want to choose the smallest barbette that can fit that turret on, the turret that you've chose. which is that one in this case. If you press the middle button on one of your pieces, it copies it, so you don't need to find it again. And if you press the control button, then you can fine tune where you place things. So without the control button, you can see that it snaps. With the control button, you can finally place it. So that would be the basic armament which you'd be taking. So as you can see, we've got plenty of weight left over. So if we had triple barrel, then we'd then swap these for triple barrels. But obviously we haven't got that tech in this era, so we wouldn't be doing that now. Now you're just sorting your fore weight and aft weight offset, so you don't get any accuracy penalties from that. Again, if you hold control, you can finely tune where you're placing things. You're going to want everything as close to the middle of your ship as you can, because that will help you pitch. So at the moment we haven't got any fore and aft weight, and we're on 12.7. But if we put everything towards the edges, so again we've got no fore and aft, but instead of it being 12.7, it's 20.7. So putting everything as close to the middle as you can get it is the best way to build your ship. You're obviously going to want your turrets far enough away from your towers to be able to get a good traversal. So just have a look from above to make sure it's going to be able to fire past your towers. So that looks about right. Okay, so now we've got the weapons that we want, we've got the components that we want, we've got the armour that we want, and it just so happens that we've got loads of weight left over. So now it's up to you whether you want to increase your speed, put some range on, or put some protection on from torpedoes. You can also add more torpedoes and secondary guns if you wanted, or alternatively, if you want to make your ship cheaper, you just reduce the displacement down. So they're your options at this point, whichever one you want to do. Now, if you're building the ship out just as a combat ship, then just an ordinary combat ship, then you can reduce the displacement. But if you're building it out as a power projection ship, I'll just quickly explain what that means. In the campaign, as I said before, power projection plays a huge role. It's how you get blockaded and how you blockade the enemy, as well as how you protect your convoys, your transport ships. So it plays a huge role. Now, how I usually play is I build one class out, which is usually my battleship, as a power projection ship. Now, the best way to do that is to make it as cheap as possible, but with as much weight as possible. So it's a bit strange, But what you're going to want to do is lower the speed down to as low as it can go, increase the range to as high as it can go, give it decent long range weaponry so it can still help in fights, but it will not be able to last in a fight on its own. It will need support, so it will only be a supporting ship if you're building it out as a power projection ship. Now you're going to want this weight as high as you can make it and the cost as low as you can make it, because your power projection works off the weight of the ship and the range. And then obviously the cheaper that you can make it, the more of them you can buy. So in this case, what you would do is you would select the worst armour that you can take, which will then put the weight of your ship up, and it will also reduce the cost of your ship. So as you can see, it's on 21. That puts it up to 24. So that's the easiest way to build a power projection ship, is to just reduce the quality of your armour. So you reduce the speed down to the minimum, range up to the maximum, and then reduce your armour quality down to the minimum. Now you can go one step further if you wanted. Take off all of your components, as these are very expensive. They're not very power projection efficient. Now you're going to want your engine efficiency high still, because that affects operational range, which affects your power projection. But because we've reduced the speed down to its lowest, it's unlikely that it's ever going to go above 100 anyway. Oh, it did actually drop quite considerably. That's quite surprising. There we go, so you can drop that down to induced, and you can drop this down to its lowest as well. This is only if you're taking it to the extreme. You're going to want to keep your armament as good as you can make it, because you're still going to be using this ship to fire from long range. And now from here, you just want to spend the remaining weight on armour. It doesn't actually look like we've got much remaining weight, so you're not going to need to spend much. But sometimes you'd have 20,000 tons left without any of this stuff on. At which point you can put a ridiculous amount of armour, like 40 on. Well, with this turret it only goes up to 26, but by doing that it doesn't increase the cost that much, but it increases the weight a lot. And so that way you're going to end up with a fantastic power projection ship. Just think of it as like a Tirpitz or something, where it's not really intended to do anything other than scare the opponent. Okay, so that's your basics of how to build a ship. I'll quickly just do it again without talking with a heavy cruiser. So this will be a screening ship. I'll still talk, I just won't explain quite so much. So maximum bulkhead, standard quarters, maximum displacement, approximately 25 speed. You can just set it at that for now if you wanted. So select the best towers with the best smoke interference. select the best propulsion. That's as good as we can get for smoke interference. So we're only at 34.8 engine efficiency. So you're going to want to either lower your speed until you get to about 66%. So you can keep it at 21.6 knots if you want, that's ideal. Or if you're not too bothered about the acceleration, you can just put it back up to what you want it set at, which, let's say if you want it at 25, you can just deal with the acceleration penalty if you want. You'll be able to figure out which one you prefer in game. So just quickly try and balance your ship out with the fore and aft weight. That'll do. Select your components. Oh, I forgot to mention with this one, it doesn't look like it's that one, but there it is, flash fire chance. So electric 2 gives you a flash fire chance, so I never select that one. This one's ship repairs, which isn't great, but at least it's not a flash fire chance, so you can get away with that one. Okay, choose your gun. So you're either going to want an 11-inch or a 9-inch with the heavy cruisers. 11-inch is more of a close-in fight accuracy. 9-inch is more of a long-range accuracy, which is a bit strange. You would imagine that the bigger caliber would be the longer range, but that's just how it is. So, because I want to get in close with this ship, I'll be choosing 11-inch. I'm just placing them anywhere at the moment just so I can see what caliber gun I'm using, so I can then set my armor. So I'm using an 11-inch. So you're either going to set it at 11 or 12. I'll set it at 12 for now. That's just what I like using for screening ships. So this is the screening ship armor build, not the long range. So it's gun caliber half, 1.7, 1.7, 1.7, 14, which is 2 higher than your main belt. So as you can see, we've gone over on the weight now. So we're going to need to strip back. And we haven't put the turret armor on yet. So now the first thing that you can do is strip back these if you want, because they're not that important. So you can drop them down to 0.3 if you want. And the other thing that you could do is knock some speed off. So turret armor the same as your conning tower, and the top the same as the forebelt. As you can see, we've still got quite a bit overweight, so what we're going to want to do as well is add some barbettes to this and take another couple of turrets. So I can't remember. I think these are just small guns. Yeah, I think that's the smallest one for 11 inches. I think so. Anyway. Okay, so now here's your choice. Do you want 4 turrets and reduce your speed? So it's either 25 knots with 2 turrets or 4 turrets at... Well, there you go. You'd have to reduce it considerably. So you can see now that this ship is not capable of supporting 4 turrets. So you can take them back off again. Then because it's a screening ship, you're going to want some small guns on and some torpedoes to fight the enemy small ships. Well, the torpedoes for the enemy big ships, the small guns for the enemy small ships. Oh, we haven't done this as well either. Because it's a close-in ship, I quite often just put it on reduced. And then, because it'll be turning quite a bit, you can put it on advanced hydraulics, but I don't think it's necessary. Okay, so all I would normally do is just select the smallest casemates, or just select some 2 and 3 inches to put along the side. So the casemates are usually good to be able to put on towers. And also some of these 2 inches can go on towers as well. Can also go on top of these if you really wanted. Okay, so we've got a ship built out. We've got small guns for the small ships. The biggest gun for enemy armoured cruisers. They can also help out with enemy battleships if need be. You got torpedoes to finish off the enemy large ships. So now you can do your final adjustments to the speed. It's actually considerably lower than I expected, so I think what I'm going to do at this point, switch out these turrets for the 9-inch ones. They're going to be a lot less weight, but still also pretty good at what they're doing. These can't fit on top of them, that size turret. Okay, so now we've got virtually the speed that we want. We have actually gone a bit higher than we were before, so now our engine efficiency is really low, but it's up to you if you want to take some components and lower your speed, or add a bit more armour to lower your speed, just to boost this engine efficiency up a little bit. Oh, I haven't done my turret armour, that's why. There we go. And that's how I would build a ship. So I hope this has been helpful. Oh, one last thing before I go. Be careful of these pitch and roll. They give huge negatives to your base accuracy. So I already mentioned the pitch before, not putting things on the very edge. But with the roll, say for example here, if I was going to put some secondary guns along the edge. So we're on 4.6 at the moment. So just by adding a couple of secondary guns, we've just put that up quite considerably. It doesn't make that much difference with these smaller guns, but with a bigger ship, if you're putting larger caliber or 4 or 5 of them along each side, this can quite quickly start rising to 20, 30, 40. And before you know it, your base accuracy's gone down the drain, and now your main guns have got a horrendous accuracy just because you added some secondary guns to your ship. So just be careful of this this roll stat. And I think that should do it. Alright, sorry it's been a long one. I hope it's been helpful in some way. Alright, take care guys. See you soon.